Hey everybody, Ed Carbajal, Matthew Hawkins here on UFC 270 fight to UFC 270 one fight week, Coast to Coast Combat Hour. Ed Carbajal, Matt Hawkins, as always, brought to you by All Access MMA. Check out All Access MMA for your mixed martial arts news and content and stuff like that. Matt, we had regular 3 times the charm or 4 times the charm with Fernando Gonzalez on last week. And then this week we got the UFC pay-per-view coming up in Houston, Texas. Interesting stuff going on. I mean, in my opinion, I don't know. Maybe you tell me how you feel about it. I know we're kind of a little taken aback by the state of mixed martial arts as a whole these days. But do you feel like this is? I don't know. I just feel like it's not as hyped as like any of the other pay-per-views should be. I feel like it's not really being marketed. I'm understanding Adesanya literally just signed his end of the contract this week too.
Kind of makes some sense then there, huh?
Yeah.
Sounds to me like he played his cards right because he signed a bout agreement and a contract extension, right? All
Yeah.
in the last like 48 hours or whatever it is, last 3 days, whatever, something like that. So
Mm-hmm.
sounds to me like he basically, the UFC did their let's announce a fight that's not signed, and he kind of sat it out till the end. Now, while it didn't lead to promotion, it probably left them behind the 8 ball and had to give him a little bit more of money in his new contract. So,
Yeah.
if he actually pulled that off and it was something he was thinking about, then props to him for for doing that. But yeah, it's been quiet. I think in the sports world, it has a lot to do with the Super Bowl the following day, so
Mm.
that might be taking away some. Might have been a reason why the UFC kind of went away from the pre Super Bowl pay per views in the past. I have no idea, but historically there was some loaded pre, night before Super Bowl events in Vegas. Couture Belfort jumps into my mind as one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that. So, uh, they had some big events back then, and then they went away from it, and then we got a couple fight nights. I think we got like a maybe a Hendricks headlined against somebody fight night a couple of years ago, and then they kind of disappeared last year, obviously with the pandemic stuff. But
Yeah.
glad to see the pay per view back. Definitely seems like it's like you said, not much promotion, but a main event that honestly is one that I feel like was created a rematch that was created almost kind of like the proper way. And I'm not real sure why Whitaker didn't get the same uh, instant rematch that everybody else seems to get, but
Mm-hmm.
this is actually kind of more how I prefer it, barring it being a close Moreno Figueiredo kind of decision
Yeah.
where it leads to you have unfinished business. There really was no unfinished business with these two guys, Adesanya and Whitaker, after their first
Mm-hmm.
fight. Fight ended super quick. Adesanya put his lights out. So I felt like this was the right way. Let it build up. Let's build up. And it would have been nice to have some promotion because it is a huge fight. And you feel like this is the fight that was always talked about returning to Australia in front of the Ronda Rousey style, 93,000 people um, and having the big show. Obviously, that's not happening. And
Mm-hmm.
not only is it not happening, but like you said, I would say that if I asked 9 out of 10 MMA fans just kind of casually what they think about the event this week, I don't think many of them even know it's happening.
Yeah. I mean, I usually get gauged by the younger guys in the gym that I train at, and it's not something like usually on Saturday. They'll be like, "Oh, isn't there something going on tonight?" That seems to have been happening more and more these days. Than 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 past pay-per-views and stuff like that. I don't know if it's got anything to do with COVID or anything going on. I mean, it's in Houston, so looks like fans will be in attendance and all that stuff. But one of the things that I just wanted one quick note about Adesanya signing everything. I mean, there's a press release that a quote from Aaron Brunstetter put out from a release from Paradigm Sports that manages Adesanya. They said that Adesanya, this was this morning around 10 a.m. my time. Israel Adesanya has signed a multi-fight deal with the UFC, making him, and this is in quotes, one of the top-paid athletes in the history of mixed martial arts. So whatever he did seems to have been whatever folks thought Ngannou was doing. With the last pay-per-view. So It's definitely an interesting time in mixed martial arts, man. I mean, there's a lot of characters covering the sport, and seems to be a lot of new money suddenly interested in the sport. So,
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a good way of putting it. There's more money that's involved, and along with more money comes, some of the stuff that's going to not be so favorable, to maybe some of the people that
hmm
don't prefer their MMA surrounded by YouTube uh, people and
yeah,
such. But you know, I, again, I think this show's not about bashing the UFC and stuff, but like we really know that when he says he's one of the highest paid people in mixed martial arts, that could mean the contract's anywhere between like 500,000 and $1 million a fight,
yeah,
and instantly that puts him behind, you know, five of the people in the world who have made that much in mixed martial arts, on
hmm
a consistent basis. Um, so that's kind of, you just never know. You never know what it means. Obviously, his promotional company is not going to come out and say, "Hey, we signed him to a contract that pays him what the minimum NHL player makes," but
yeah,
you know
yeah,
that kind of thing. But good for him. And if he played his cards right, I mean, the money's where the money is. If he's getting it here, um, then good for him because he's not going to get a ton more
hmm
anywhere else in the world for what he's doing. So I look forward to the main event. We can start lower on the card, as we're pretty much going to work through 271 tonight for tonight's show.
Oh yeah, so I might as well
Yeah, you can
bring
pop
up
it up.
the fight card. For those folks that just listen to this, we always bring it up off of UFC website, UFC.com, the event page for UFC 271, and they've been including odds lately from DraftKings because they're partnered with DraftKings. So, where do you want to start, man? I mean, if you want
Well,
to work,
yeah, I mean, we'll do our picks for the main card, but just on some of the prelims, not necessarily fights overall, but some names. Andrei Arlovsky's on the prelims. Roxanne Modafferi going for her 50th fight. I believe it's also her retirement fight, if I
hmm
if I read that right. So
and I feel like
she,
that's going under the radar, and it really shouldn't.
I think that's
but
going under the radar. I saw today that I believe uh, Alexander Hernandez was frustrated. He was on the earlier prelims, and considering he's fighting Renato Moicano,
oh wow,
I
yeah,
tend to think that I would prefer that fight over just about every fight on the main card except for the
hmm
top three. So no disrespect to those other two fights, but
hmm
um, that fight honestly is, other than the top three fights on the main card, that one definitely probably falls second for me, followed maybe by the Arlovsky fight, just because it's old school and it's Andrei
hmm
Arlovsky heavyweight fight. But yeah, the Modafari thing seems, it again, like, there's a lot of stuff on this card that could be talked about, and it hasn't really, like you said, been talked about much. You would think
hmm
we would be seeing Roxanne Modafferi get interviewed more often,
yeah.
as I mean, she's the
I mean, today was media day, so I'm hoping we'll see some of that content from like Junkie and all
yeah.
the other people that are there tomorrow. But I mean, there's Adesanya stuff all over the place. I haven't really seen much of anyone else. So
Yeah, I say that's pretty accurate, and I think that goes for Whitaker as well. So,
yeah.
yeah, so some names on the prelims, some good fights on the prelims. The overall card's pretty solid. I think there's going to
hmm
be, I think it's a fun night of action. Alex Perez, Matt Schnell, yeah, good fights.
Yeah,
Not
I'm
really much
surprised
to
about that. Yeah, I didn't even know about that till you mentioned it right now. This Hernandez and Moicano.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's at worst got to be the headliner of the prelims, but they've got him
hmm
kind of sunk down low. So
These are
when
like the Fight Pass prelims. That's kind of like
yeah, like these are the ones that
yeah,
the average person doesn't watch.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just the truth. The average casual fan usually doesn't catch these fights, and
Mm.
there's a ton of them. Usually the early prelims is like one or two,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's
There's
a couple of
how many?
you know,
Five, six? One, two, three, four, five fight. No, six on the Fight Pass prelims.
yeah, I mean there's
Hmm.
15 fights on the card. So
Well,
um
right now, as of Wednesday at night, when
as of
we're,
Wednesday,
you know what I mean? Because
yeah,
that'll change by, that could change by
by the end of the
Friday.
show.
Yeah, yeah,
As seems like it's been kind of history lately, where we
yeah.
we end the show and then all of a sudden there's a headline breaking news about something we just talked about.
Well, I want to talk about that too because really quick before we start doing our predictions and stuff, I don't think this is. I mean, based on where it is, if you look at the main event and the co-main event. Um, Considering where they wanted to do this, and with all the travel situation, especially folks coming from where both Whitaker and Adesanya are coming from, And the COVID protocols that they do for 2022, meaning the home test, the arrival test, which would have been yesterday. So everyone, if that hasn't been dropped, removed for COVID protocols right now, there's still one more opportunity for that to happen, which is weigh-ins, official weigh-ins, and so you never know. I'm wondering if this is. I mean, it's in Houston, Texas, so something tells me it's not as serious there. Um, but I feel like this is not an accident that this is the co-main event, Lewis and Tuivasa. If something happens that we lose the main event, you know, in Houston anyway, you have an excuse to still pack the house with a local boy and another fairly popular KO artist in Tuivasa. Um, so like I said, I mean, I don't know. I haven't been watching the embeddeds and all that. I haven't watched those in years actually because it's just, you know, I I don't want to say it's gotten boring, but like, you know,
It's gotten boring.
yeah, yeah,
It has. I mean, and again, like I said, it's weird to do an MMA show and then say that, but the reality is a lot of it's gotten stale, and I think that that's not just our opinion. I think that's one that's gaining momentum as it goes. But again, yeah, I mean,
yeah, yeah.
here's the thing with Derek Lewis. You got him in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it could pass. I was always confused by that. As somebody who grew up around the local scene, I was always like, I always saw my local guys fighting. Like if you've gone to MMA events in Houston, you've probably seen Derek Lewis fight at least 6 times if you go a bunch. So I don't I was always like, don't give me Derek Lewis. Like give me Fabricio Verdun or give me Krokop. Give me somebody who I don't see. You know, all the time in Houston. And again, obviously, as a title contender, he's going to have his local fan base. But as a person who doesn't necessarily locked in on, oh boy, this guy lives in the same city as me, I would get a little tired of that. So I don't know if that'll eventually happen if they keep going to these cities with the same,
Mm-hmm.
and focusing on a lot of the same guys. But that's just a minor thing. I hope the main event doesn't fall apart for the people that bought tickets for, especially as we talk about the ticket prices being um, higher than we've seen much in the
Yeah.
past. Now, with that said, I got my alert for tickets for the April
Just.
9th, 274, I believe it is the,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe it's 273. It's the
Yeah.
the uh, the double main event that moved from March to April, and the most expensive seats for that event were $320 for Jacksonville.
Hmm.
So, and that's the same prices basically that I looked at for the first return event last April. So, I'm not telling fans what to do, but if you're in a close travel vicinity to Jacksonville, although not exactly the party capital of the world there, it's not a bad price if you want to go see a live UFC event in a nice arena for what the ticket that would cost you $300 in Jacksonville to sit in the club VIP section would cost you about $4,000 in Vegas. So, keep that in mind if you're in that vicinity or able to get there. But jumping back to this card, yeah. So top two fights we talked about, real good fights. Let's go down to the bottom of the opener for the main card. Let's see what they got compared to what I show. Yep, Bobby Green versus Nasrat
Hot
Akpras.
pressed.
Akpras. I practice saying it and then I get here and don't do it right. So
Little Kelvin Gastelum.
yeah. Bobby Green been around a long time, came from Strike Force.
Mm-hmm.
News came out today that he actually is pretty loyal to the UFC based off word that the UFC paid for his brother's funeral in 2014,
Oh wow.
um, which is actually, my story about Bobby Green is when I met him at the expo, it was shortly after his brother had passed.
Mm.
And I don't remember how the conversation got up, but somehow we started talking about people we've lost in our lives. And he mentioned his brother and, just thanked me for actually carrying in a conversation. So it was one of those things with Bobby Green. I got to talk to him for about 5-10 minutes at an expo and kind of had a deep conversation for a fan and a fighter at the time. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to hear that the UFC at that time uh, covered those expenses because he seemed like a really good guy and was really taken back by the loss of his brother. So
Yeah.
that's one of the good, when UFC does something good, we definitely should focus on pointing that out and
Yeah,
let
because it doesn't get pointed. It's all the bad stuff that always gets
it's
brought up.
always the
Never.
bad
Yeah.
stuff. No matter who you are, you always just get the bad news. So when they do something good, props to them. And
Yeah.
props to the good people that do work for the UFC. We tend to hang on the news. But getting back to the fight, then the pick, I'm going with Bobby Green. I think he's
Hmm.
coming off of a finish of Ali Kenta in the first round, which was
Yeah.
um, well, maybe not necessarily a career performance, was kind of a career finish for him. First round UFC knockout of a perennial top 10 contender. Um, Hasbras coming off of a loss to Dan Hooker this past September. Yeah, I'm going Bobby Green by decision. I think he's just got the movement. I don't think he's necessarily always the most fun fighter to watch. He can kind of frustrate people because of his awkward movements, and he kind of just seems to throw fighters out of their mix and and gets in his game. He also can land that big punch. I don't necessarily see a finish here, but I'll take Bobby Green by 3-round decision and just
Mm.
stick and move. Just using that veteran gamesmanship that he seems to be able to pull out of the hat every once in a while.
Yeah, I'm actually going the other way. With I'm noting your picks because I like to, I don't know why I like to do that. I just like to do that for my own future ball breaking opportunities for later. So you're going with Bobby Green. I mean, I feel like based because you told that story too, you're gonna always go with Bobby Green, which
I tend
I
to.
don't
I
blame
tend
you.
to. I
Yeah,
tend to root for him. Yeah, that's a
yeah.
given. But I just think that he. I just think that he has. I mean, I'll hear how you think that the fight ends. I'm not sure if I see a finish either way. So I kind of go with the guy who tends to
Yeah,
win
I
some
mean,
decisions.
I don't usually try to get too specific with it. I mean, when I'm making my picks, I do that more when I'm making my bets. But I feel like I mean, I do think Green's experience could trump the youth and inexperience of Hawkprass. But in history and combat sports shows when when there's an age gap like that, and sometimes it is a younger man's game, and that's why I'm going with Hackprass. I feel like especially if it goes past like the midpoint of the second round, I feel like it's easier for me to go with the younger fighter in Nasrat Hakparas. So I'm going with him just for that reason. And
Yeah,
I don't have any cool stories about any of them.
no,
So
no, I don't have any cool stories. I don't think about anybody else necessarily, but yeah, Hasbras is 26, Bobby Green 35 for
Mhm.
any listeners curious about their age. So that opens fight, good fight. Uh,
And wait a second, real quick, because when I looked, actually
and
before we move on,
what were the odds of that one? Pretty close.
so
Yeah,
when
there
I
you go.
was doing my research before I did the write up where I put my notes in, they didn't have odds for them, and
Mhm.
now they have Green as a favorite. So I'm
Minus 140,
yeah.
Hasbras plus 120. That's essentially a coin flip. I mean, you've got
Hmm.
a little bit of action on each side, but um, pretty much just a coin flip down when it's anything under minus 150. It's not a huge favorite. So,
Yeah.
second fight of the night: Kyler Phillips, Marcelo Rojo. I'm gonna go with Kyler Phillips in this fight. Nine and
Yeah.
two. You're fighting an opponent that's 16-8. I've said my piece about when you're 16-8, you usually don't have long winning streaks and stuff like that. I'll go with Kyler Phillips to pick up the win. Um,
Hmm.
this is kind of the fight that I wish was swapped out with the Hernandez Moicano fight, but
Mm.
we could see, it could be a fight that keeps the card rolling and
Yeah.
and prepares you for the next three real solid fights on the main card.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. I think Kyler Phillips just comes from a better back. He's an LFA guy versus Rojo coming from Combate Global. Um, Rojo's had some up and downs, whereas Phillips had a string of wins before he had the decision loss from his last fight. But what was it? It was like the Dan Hooker or somebody. I forget who it was. I don't have that in my notes who it was, but whoever he lost the decision to, it was somebody notable. So
Yeah, it was Pavia,
yeah,
Julian Pavia, who's 20-3. So yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so that means Phillips is no slouch, and I I don't see him just picking up another L at UFC 271. So we're both on the same page there. Um, this one I'm actually really interested in this fight because these guys, Jared Cannonier versus Derek Brunson, they're both even like dimension wise. They're almost even in height. There's look at this. I mean, it's like point 0.5 half an inch reach advantage goes to Cannonier, which is kind of like nothing. And their leg reach is like only but by a couple of inches. So it's almost like they're fighting. It's like that Spider-Man meme where they're pointing at each other. It's like they're two molds of the same fighter are facing one another. The only difference is their experience. So I feel like this fight is going to be that, in my opinion, is the hardest one to call. However, I what is I'm seeing. I feel like because of their evenness, they both like to strike. I know Cannonier probably has a little more output based on the data here on the UFC website. But if you go to where the grappling exchanges, I don't know how accurate this data is, but I feel like Brunson has the edge there, so I wouldn't be surprised if it turns into a grinding session in favor of Derek Brunson. So I'm going with Brunson.
Yeah, I'm also going with Brunson. I just think he's on a roll right now. I think he's found his groove.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, this is unless somebody's slipping my mind, I think the winner of this fight basically gets the next title fight. Excuse me. And I think that Brunson's just been in the game a long time, and I don't know if he's going to let that slip through his fingers
Mm-hmm.
with the run he's on. Cannonier's been on a nice run also, with his only loss being to Whitaker.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, since he dropped down to this weight, I think Cannonier carries a bigger punch, obviously coming down from
Yeah.
heavyweight. So I do feel like he could potentially put Brunson's lights out, where I don't necessarily see it happening the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of like the Bobby Green situation, I just feel like Brunson might be able just to kind of do his thing. There might be some wrestling. The threat of the wrestling might even be more of a dangerous thing in this fight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just I feel like Brunson is a guy who's just been through he's the kind of the well, not Glover, because Glover had some ups before he had his little down run, but
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like he's right. He's towards the end of his career, age wise, as far as prime, and I think that if he's going to win a fight and get a title shot, this is it. And I just don't see him letting to slip away. I know in the past we talked to Doc Lucas out there in uh, South Carolina, and
Yeah.
he was doing some training around there, and just seemed like Brunson was really focused and determined to get that shot that he's been
Mm-hmm.
grinding out for. I mean, he's on one of my Strike Force posters back here against Jacare. I mean, you're going back, long time in the world of MMA for him being around and being, in big fights. So I'm gonna go with Brunson. I just don't see necessarily a finish. I suppose something on the ground later in the fight if Cannonier gets tired.
Yeah.
Maybe he can work something there. But in a 3-round fight, 5-round fight here I would actually appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
But in a 3-round fight, I just don't. I think both guys are too good to get finished in a 3-round fight. So I see Brunson taking it. Um, I'm maybe even thinking like 2 rounds to 1. I think Cannonier might even come out win the first round. Um, kind of try to bully him around a little bit, and then eventually Brunson just kind of figures it out and wins the final 2 rounds and takes the decision. Is kind of how I see it
Yeah.
in my mind.
Yeah. Same here. Same here. Um, and I think let me just because the odds pop up when you close it. And Brunson's an underdog, so I feel like there's a nice little possible underdog parlay that I'm seeing with my picks with
Well, yeah, with
Hawks
Hesperast
and
and
Brunson. Yeah.
Brunson's a solid,
And the next one because I mean we might as well talk about the co-main
All
event.
right, so yeah, co-main event: Derek Lewis, Tai Tuivasa. Probably another number one contender fight for Lewis. Lewis wins, he
Mm-hmm.
probably gets the next title fight, barring a Jones Miocic coming back out of nowhere.
Super
But
fight or
but
whatever.
with
Yeah.
the guys who are active right now, it'd be hard to deny him another shot. Um, and actually, a favorable time for him, considering there's not a Cormier out there who's gonna just ragdoll him down to the ground. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's a different era right now in the heavyweight. So um, with that said, you might as well go first. You said you had Tuivasa based off of the gambling, right?
Mm-hmm. Not just the gambling, but because I mean it's weird because so let me check my notes here. So up until UFC 265, Lewis was undefeated when he fought in Texas. He never lost in Texas until he lost to Cyril Gane, right?
Hmm.
And then his uh but that's not to say he's never been knocked out. It was actually his fifth time losing by TKO. And Tuivasa's only been TK or knocked out or TKO, whichever you want to call it. Tuivasa's only been finished that way once in his whole pro career. So if it's going to be these guys trying to test each other's chins, I feel like Tuivasa has the edge there. I wouldn't be surprised if Tuivasa can pull it off if that's what happens. I know Lewis is not a fan of like grappling. Again, I don't know if hometown advantage is a thing in MMA anymore because that Cyril Gahn loss was in Houston, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes, it was.
Um, so I just don't think I wouldn't be surprised if Tuivasa can land enough to get like a technical knockout stoppage. Um, but it's the hometown favorite. Lewis is never seems like he looks like he's always having fun out, when he on fight week and stuff like that. So I mean, I'm just going off of their records and going picking Tuivasa, shocking everybody.
Yeah. Hmm. I was thinking Lewis all day, and then I just heard you talk about that about Tuivasa and Lewis, mainly Lewis being finished, being knocked out in the past so much. You know, I'm still gonna stick with Lewis because I haven't really seen anybody be able to take his punch. And I'm
Mm,
not saying that I've seen a lot of guys take Tuivasas, but I just feel like in a slugfest,
mm,
you tend to lose against Derek Lewis. And I know that goes the same for Tuivasa, but
mm.
I just in his home state,
Yeah,
I'm gonna go with Lewis. I would
he
be
does have
shocked.
the reach advantage too. So I wouldn't. I'm not. I'm. I could definitely be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me who would win a decision between these two, I'd probably go Tuivasa because I'd expect him to have more output,
Hmm.
to kind of sway the judges. But I don't see this fight getting past the halfway mark of the second round.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely
You
not
know what
going
I
to the
mean?
end.
You know what I mean? So, with that said, I'm gonna go with the guy. I wouldn't want to be hit by either of these guys, but I've seen Derek Lewis. Just
Yeah,
I've
I don't think
been
anybody
fairly close
would.
to the cage a few times, and I've seen Derek Lewis just put people down
Well,
in heaps.
where we first met, didn't he fight? Because we met at the MGM Grand when he fought Roy
Yeah,
Nelson, right? It was him and Roy
yeah, but
Nelson.
he won a decision that night though. That
Yeah,
was kind of a slow fight.
but
But
still, the way he hit Roy Nelson made me realize
no,
how
you're
hard.
right. He did hit
Yeah.
him hard. Yeah, and I saw him fight Guto Inosec. Uh, I think that's how you say his last name. The mainly the glory kickboxer who had a run through Strikeforce
Hmm.
and came to the UFC. I saw him put him down hard on the it was Edgar Pen 3 Ultimate Fighter finale. And yeah, just we've all seen Derek Lewis. I mean, I've seen him lose too in
Yeah.
person, but I just I I just think that again, if you think about what's in these guys' heads, and if you believe that they want to be champions, you got
Yeah.
to believe a guy like Lewis right now is going, man, give me that one more title shot. If you give me Ngannou again, I beat him in a boring ass fight. Just
Yeah.
let me, I don't have to worry about being taken. In theory, we might see, Horian Gracie, Ngannou for the next, who knows, but I don't know. I'm gonna go with Lewis. Not and part of me wants Tuivasa because I would love to have that new heavyweight kind of blood come
Yeah,
in. And
he's a Mark Hunt protege. It's like
look, there's a lot
yeah,
to like about both of these
yeah,
guys if
yeah,
you're just a
yeah.
hardcore fight fan. But there's also a part of me that it likes the Black Beast and has become a fan of his, despite
Oh yeah,
maybe despite him not being the greatest mixed martial artist of all time. There's appreciation for me for a guy who doesn't like to grapple, doesn't look like he's in shape, but goes out there and knocks people's heads off. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like that's that's what this sport has always kind of been for me. Like, let's just find out who the best fighter is. Now,
yeah. The Tank Abbott's and the yeah,
all the
yeah,
accolades are cool to have, but a gold medal don't mean anything if Derek Lewis hits you in the chin. So,
yeah,
um, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of what always attracted me to the fight game. So there's a part of me, and Tuivasa again is like kind of the same mold, but I'm gonna go with Lewis in Houston. I don't know if he loses two in a row in his home arena.
yeah. I mean, that's saying a lot, man. So don't. I know I put it in my. For folks watching this on YouTube, I always drop and on the Spotify the link to my newsletter that I've been doing 2022. I'm adding my all my fight picks for all the events. You Bellator, I didn't. It was fucking horrible.
Yeah,
So don't get
I was gonna say,
so
at
don't
least
go by me.
if I pick opposite of you every fight, at least one of us will be right.
There you go. I mean, yeah. So that's my warning for if you're gonna do my picks, because I still think I'm gonna pick Tuivasa, and I'm probably gonna throw some money on a. It looks like another 3-fighter underdog parlay. Maybe I'll just do
You
two.
really could do an entire main card undercard parlay and it not be crazy.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
It really not be. I mean,
Except
other
for
than well, we get to the main event. Robert Whitaker, Israel
yeah,
Adesanya
except for the
for
main
the.
event, because I don't. I'm just gonna say my side now. I don't see it going any different than the first one.
You
Maybe
don't.
maybe it goes a distance, but
Well,
yeah,
I mean, I don't. I certainly don't see Whitaker getting finished as quick as he did the first time around. I
yeah.
really don't. Um, I want to pick Whitaker, and I want Whitaker to win this fight. Let me just be honest with you. I want the stirring up of the division. Um,
Yeah.
and that's not just that's and I like Israel Adesanya. There's no knock on him. I just have always been that way. Barring it being my favorite fighter in a division, I like the mixing of I like rotations of
Mhm.
champions. Now obviously Adesanya could turn out to be the next Anderson Silva, where he has this run where it's just majestic and and everything goes great. But he lost to Blakovic.
Yeah.
While Anderson Silva never challenged for the title at a heavier division, he always knew who to pick to fight.
Mhm.
He always knew it was Forrest Griffin, Stephen Bonners are the guys that you know I can let everybody know that I can make everybody believe I can handle the next weight class above. Why not actually challenging, you know, the champ of the weight class above? I feel like Adesanya kind of jumped the shark a little bit going
Mhm.
for that fight.
Oh,
With that said,
you're talking about when, yeah, but that was more to, they were testing their, I mean, that was them, testing the marketability of the having him and John Jones do their thing, and that, and
yeah, and
the,
I get
yeah.
it. I get it. I understand it, but then he comes out and says it wasn't exciting for him, and when you start saying stuff like that to me, you're like kind of you're just making excuses. He
Mhm.
got manhandled by a bigger guy in that fight. Now this is two guys same weight class. In fact, Whitaker's actually coming up from 170 if you want to go back to
Mhm.
his Ultimate Fighter, earlier days in the UFC. So he's not like there's going to be a size discrepancy like when
And
Adesanya fought.
I still have to say, I mean, it really depends on how much damage you can take, and maybe first of all these guys are tough as nails, but when you're comparing, I mean, compared to the average hobbyist martial artist or what have you, but I still say Kelvin Gastelum put the blueprint out there on how to beat Israel Adesanya, and I think if Whitaker tries to do that again, because I think he tried to do it the first time and he just couldn't take the counter striking of Adesanya. But he has had some time off. Maybe he's a little tougher for it. Maybe he's got some tricks up his sleeve that Adesanya, is not trained
I
for.
don't think
But
he can beat Adesanya using the Gastelum style. I don't think
no,
Whitaker has that tool
he
set.
doesn't have the chin for it.
I don't think he has the chin, and I don't think he has the one punch put you to sleep power that
Mm,
Gastelum occasionally carried.
hmm
Not that he put Adesanya to sleep, but he put him on his butt a few
Yeah,
times.
and he lumped up his
Um,
face. He looked like that.
yeah, for me, Whitaker wins this fight by just kind of doing what I said. Bobby Green and Brunson just kind of making it ugly. Make it ugly. Avoid getting into any kind of big firefights. Don't 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 make basically don't take any risks and win a cheap decision. You know
Hmm
what I mean? Like, sadly, that's kind of the way I would almost go about it. I'd go, because I don't think Adesanya is going to outwork you to an extent. Like, I don't think
hmm
he's going to outpunch you 10-1.
I
But
mean,
his
he tends to make his opponents outwork themselves and then like counter punches. You know what I mean?
That's kind of what I was thinking. So that's what I'm saying. If like you don't extend yourself if you're Whitaker, you go
Hmm
out there, you take what Adesanya gives you, and if you have a round or two where there's 10 total strikes thrown, like a Romero uh Romero Adesanya fight, like
hmm
while that was ugly to watch, a lot of people at the end of the night thought Romero was right in that fight. So
hmm
you can you needed Romero didn't win the decision that night, but you know what I mean? That's and you do a little bit more than Romero did. Romero took the first shit, half that fight basically off completely. I'm not saying do that, but I'm just saying don't be in a hurry to go out there and finish Adesanya. That's the way, again, as a schmo doing a podcast, that's the way that
Yeah,
I would
you
that's
can't
the
say
way.
Schmo anymore. The Schmo's the man now, so you can't say that anymore.
Yeah, that's true too.
You
Um
gotta say some ball bag doing a ball podcast.
yeah. So that's the way I see it. That's how I would see Whitaker winning. Um but it's hard to pick. Now I picked Moreno and Figueiredo pulled it off. Said the same thing. It's hard to pick
Yeah,
against a guy who just finished the other dude in a matter of under 10 minutes.
yeah.
Uh, so I'm going to pick Adesanya, but I
Yeah.
don't necessarily think that this is the whitewashing that we saw the first time. I think that
Mm.
I think Whitaker's a great fighter, and I think if Adesanya wasn't in this division, I think we'd be talking about Whitaker being one of the all-time greats. I mean, you take that loss away from him there, and he's on an impressive ass run. So um, I'm going to go with Adesanya with my pick, but I will be rooting for Robert Whitaker to shake the division up and
Mm.
maybe potentially set up a trilogy between these two again that they can have in Australia or New Zealand or wherever the heck that they want to go down
Yeah, isn't
under
that where
there.
they wanted to do it the first time in the
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I
yeah,
thought this was targeted, and I feel like it was kind of extended
yeah.
um, because they wanted to do it in front of 90,000 people in Australia,
Mm.
and with COVID and everything, and
They would have
COVID
packed
going.
the house too. Yeah.
That's what I mean. They would have packed the house with this one, but it's just they had to get the fight done. They can't.
Mhm.
They delayed it basically 2.5 years at this point,
Yeah.
and it's to a point now where it wouldn't be unfair for Whitaker to go, hey,
And
let's do it in
and
2023.
that's the thing that I feel like might help Whitaker though. That delay is just more time to prepare and train properly and just heal up and work on anything. You know what I mean? It's just that's where the edge lies for him, I think. But I mean, we'll see on Saturday, man. I mean, UFC 271. It's another pay-per-view weekend just before the Super Bowl. I mean, I'm not a stick and ball sports guy, but I do like the Super Bowl Sunday and all the fanfare that comes with it. Um, I would assume you're going for the Rams in your Super Bowl.
Um, yeah, yeah. I don't really have a team since the Chargers left San Diego, but I tend to root for the Rams because I rooted for them a little bit when I was a kid when they were in LA the first time. But I'm by no means am I going to claim some championship if they win it. But I see Cincinnati winning the Super Bowl. If I'm being honest, I think Joe Burrow, their quarterback, his
Hmm.
second year is on a mission, and I like the Cinderella story. And while the Rams winning with Stafford would be cool, I like the Cinderella story, and I feel like they're on a mission, and the way that that quarterback's playing is lights out. So I do think Cincinnati squeaks it out, but I won't, as a local down here, it'll be nice to see a local team win the Super Bowl. That's
Hmm.
something that's never happened really in my lifetime. Going back, unless you count the Raiders when I was like 4, but I don't count them. So, uh, but real quick, you mentioned it being some time passing before the fight. I don't mean to jump back too long, stretch this
Mhm.
out, but that's kind of why the Blachowicz thing popped into my head. One thing that Whitaker got to see during this last couple years was Adesanya lose. And
Mhm.
I think that I think there is some mental gamemanship there where Adesanya was undefeated and KO'd your ass in a round and a half. You've seen him lose now. So now maybe there's not that invincibility that that goes through your head. So just something to throw out there. Just and another reason why I think Whitaker might have more of and I believe Whitaker was going through stuff between his kid and some injuries and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
There was a lot going on a couple years ago. I don't remember all the details specifically right now, but
Well, they
um,
never really came out. Whatever was personal, and
yeah, I
Dana
think
White
his
was
son was
actually
sick or something,
yeah.
but we never
That
really heard.
was those were all rumors. Nothing was ever
That's
verified.
true too.
So
That's
yeah.
true too. So I think it's going to be a hell of a fight. Um, Again, this is one that I would recommend fans tune in for. Whole day of entertainment. Not a ton left. Not a ton of other action on Saturday as far as big. The known events. Again, follow Grabaka Hitman if you want to watch
Yeah.
MMA for 24 hours a day. But you were going to mention before the show,
Oh
just real
yeah,
quick,
and
Friday night.
Showtime Pettis' of promotion's gonna premiere on Fight Pass 6 p.m. Eastern. Showtime FC. You know, again, it's funny that when the UFC has to deal with all this legal stuff about being a monopoly or a monopsony or whatever the fucking word is. that all these other promotions are suddenly popping up left and right between Eagle FC and Showtime FC and God knows whatever else is coming out. So it looks like, oddly enough, that they're not the only game in town, and more seem to be popping up. So, hey, I mean, not that I'm complaining, because I mean, you and I will take more of the regional and lower ring stuff that we can get, because we know that's where the future champions come from. That's where all the future Adesanyas and all the Ngannous, like, they didn't fall out of a tree right to the UFC. They all fought their way up to get to where they're at. And if you want to see them watch their journey, which I think is the best part of the sport, then you might want to check out Showtime FC.
Sounds good. I'll be looking for it on a Friday night. Until then, fans can check out the show at Combat Hour on Twitter, Coast to Coast Combat Hour on Instagram. Pick up our video podcast at allaccessmma.com. Also, check out allaccessmma.com for your MMA news. Fans can follow me, Matthew Hawkins, at MMAHawk21 on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Edit Carbazol on Twitter, Carb Beerzol on Instagram, Old Head Carb on Twitch. Ed, talk to you about the fights this weekend. One of us is going to be right about a lot of fights, and one of us is going to be wrong.
I'll invest in a new robe to keep my ass warm if my bets hit.
There you go. Have a good night, brother. Thanks.
And
for
happy
listening,
Valentine's Day, ladies, for all you ladies. That's the other reason I'm wearing the robe. If you find yourself newly single on Tuesday or whatever day it is, on
Monday.
Yeah, hit your boy up on the tweeters.
Although if they're newly single on Tuesday, that might actually work too. That would actually be more favorable for us. So,
all right.
Have a good weekend, everybody, and thanks for listening.